Hey there, fellow classic comic collectors. As always, I'm Scott Harris King, and today I'm back with another installment in my multi part series showing off the complete run of Doctor Strange. This is showing off all of the issues of Doctor Strange from his first appearance in Strange Tales 110 in 1963 all the way up to the end of Strange Tales Volume 3 or 2 or whatever it is in, I think, 1988. So we got 25 years of Doctor Strange, and we're about halfway through that. We've already shown in the previous videos, there's links down below to them. We got Strange Tales 110 all the way up through Doctor Strange 183, and then we had, last time around, we looked at Marvel Premiere numbers 3 to 14, plus some other odds and ends. Now that series ended with, starting with issue 9, it was taken over by the new creative team of Steve Englehart writing, Frank Brunner doing the art, and it's one of the classic Bronze Age teams, and it's one of the classic Bronze Age runs, and that proved to be super popular enough that after issue 14, Doctor Strange got his own title, starting here with issue number 1. Now, the series was popular, but stayed bi-monthly, and remained bi-monthly for most of the series. So even though the series ran for, not even quite sure how long, 13 or 14 years, it only got to issue 81 because it was bi-monthly for almost the whole time. But we get some incredible artwork from Frank Brunner in these first few issues. Again, he started with issue 9 of Marvel Premiere, so he basically did 6 issues of that series. Starts here with Doctor Strange with a great cover. The detail, the line work, the detailing, it's amazing. You can see that my copy here is signed both by Frank Brunner and by Steve Englehart. These days I tend to get my signatures on the inside, but at the time I was doing this, I was having them sign the cover. And, this is a nice copy. It's like a mid-grade, is probably a 6 or maybe a 5.5, actually, now that I look at it a little bit closer. But, a nice solid copy. I paid $5 for it, so I wasn't too concerned about having people write on the cover, although it's worth more now. But just a great cover, and it starts a classic storyline. Now, Steve Englehart was doing these multi-part storylines. We saw at the end of the previous series, he did a multi-part thing with Cisneg and the creation of the entire universe. This time around, we get a multi-part story with introducing the villain Silver Dagger, who we're gonna see on a cover in a moment. Doctor Strange gets sent inside one of these mystical worlds and is trapped there. When we meet Agamotto, it's very Alice in Wonderland, because he turns out to be a hookah smoking caterpillar, etc., etc. Let me show you some of these other great covers. As part of this storyline, we have Doctor Strange with the Defenders in issue 2. Now, another thing I want to mention is the logo. I didn't really get into this much last time, but it is a little bit odd. This is one of the only times in the Marvel Premiere run where the Doctor in Doctor Strange is abbreviated DR period. And so in issue 1, we have that, which was the logo from Marvel Premiere. But starting with issue 2, we switch to this, and he's going to keep this logo for the rest of the series. So cool new look, great art from Frank Brunner. Another great cover here with Doctor Strange and Clea fighting Dormammu. I just paused there for a second because I'm looking at this, and honestly, it doesn't quite look like Brunner, and it also doesn't have the big Brunner signature like most of his covers. So, the inking and everything has a little bit of Gene Colan in it. I don't actually know who the artist on that is. But one reason this is kind of important is right in the middle of this storyline, we get a fill-in issue. I think it's a reprint. I don't know. I haven't read it in quite a while. It's got a Brunner cover, a great cover. Great cover. And you can see I've had it signed by Brunner. But Interior is a reprint, and I think Brunner at this point is starting to have issues with his deadlines. So he's only 9 issues into the run, and he's starting to have issues. And unfortunately, he's not going to last on the series for very much longer, which is too bad because this is an all-time great thing. And then on the other hand, you're like, well, it is bi-monthly. There should be plenty of time to do it, but for whatever reason. But we get the end of the storyline here with this great cover. We get this bondage cover with Clea. There's Silver Dagger menacing her, but Doctor Strange is appearing as he's finally freed himself from the other realm he was trapped in here in issue 5. Then we get another tremendous cover from Frank Brunner. I mean, I can't overstate just how awesome these look when you see them up close. Like the line work, the detailed line work on this is just fantastic. It's absolutely amazing. And unfortunately, this is the end of Brunner on the series, but the cover is just amazing. Issue 6. But Englehart continues with this run here. New artists. Here's issue 7. Issue 8, you know I love my yellow covers. There's just something about these yellow Bronze Age covers that I absolutely love. And we have this storyline with Dormammu. This is a Gil Kane cover, which is immediately apparent when you look at it. Issue 10. Now he's fighting Baron Mordo. And there's Eternity. It's like Englehart's bringing out all the classic Ditko Doctor Strange villains for this storyline. Now issue 11, we have a new cover artist, and we get a new interior artist here, and it is a classic Doctor Strange artist because it is Gene Colan. So Gene Colan becomes the new regular artist on the series. Doesn't do every issue, but he does a lot of them. Issue 12. And this is a great run. I mean, a lot of people consider this to be sort of it's almost impossible to beat Ditko, but a lot of people consider this to be like a close second in terms of Doctor Strange runs, this Englehart run. Now, we're going to see in a later video that I actually have an unconventional pick for my second favorite Doctor Strange run. I kind of wish I was doing this video today because of just some events happening in the real world. But I'll get into that in that video. But for now, anyway, just a little digression to say that this is an all-time classic run. Even though it's not my favorite, I still rate it very highly. Great covers. Here's a crossover with Dracula. I have the Dracula part of this crossover, but I don't know where I put it. I've noticed when I was pulling these out, I filed these a little differently than usual. I have the crossovers and the annuals mixed in with the series chronologically, and that's because some of the stories actually continue directly into other series. I think in this case, I at one point had a Tomb of Dracula run, so I was keeping that Dracula issue with that. Now that I've sold the rest of my Tomb of Dracula run, I should probably dig out that one issue with Doctor Strange. But here's the crossover on this end of things. There's 15. $16 more Gene Colan. I mean, Gene Colan's art is, I think, suited in a different way than some of these other artists. It's very different looking at Frank Brunner compared to Gene Colan. But this is the same time that Colan is doing his classic Tomb of Dracula run. And so he brings that sort of horror feel to the sort of magical elements of this. And it gives it a sort of a more... whereas Brunner's art gives it more of a fantasy feel. Gene Colan brings out more of the horror aspects. Here's issue 18. Now, this is an important issue because it's the last Englehart issue. Englehart's right in the middle of a storyline. He's got this big storyline he's doing that involves time travel. Things are getting pretty weird in it. Infamously, there's a sequence here where they go back to the Revolutionary War, and Clea sleeps with Ben Franklin, and people cite that a lot as like justification for why it was time to get rid of Englehart, which I don't think is fair, because we'll never know exactly what Englehart was doing with that storyline, because before he had a chance to explain what was happening with that scene and the whole plot, he was unceremoniously dumped from the title. So we have this classic Englehart run that just right in the middle of storyline totally switches gears with issue 19. We get a guest artist, and Marv Wolfman comes on board. Now we have a little run with Wolfman writing and Gene Colan on art, and again, you think that would be great because they're doing such great work on Tomb of Dracula at the same time, but actually it's mid, as the kids would say, at best. Like, once Englehart leaves the book, this book is kind of a mess. It's like some issues are okay, some issues aren't so great. It's coming out every 2 months, and it's very uneven, and there's a lot of like weird mysticism that doesn't seem to have a point other than just like the writers being, well, this is a book about weird wizards, so let's just put in this weird stuff, but it doesn't really go anywhere or add anything. It just like muddies the things. So I don't know. The book gets not so great here. Here's issue 20, which has a much more of a superhero sort of feel to the art and the cover. Only of note because, as you can see here, I have the 10 pence Marvel All Color Comics edition. This just happened to be the copy that they had at my LCS for whatever reason when I was putting the run together. As you see, I paid $1.50 for it. This is the only all color comics variant that I have. I've got a couple other pence variants here and there, but they're from different periods of Marvel when they weren't doing this specific thing at the top. And I love this because it looks just like the other ones, and if you're not looking closely, you might not even notice that instead of saying Marvel Comics Group, it says Marvel All Color Comics. But I love pence variants. If I could find them, I would replace all of my versions with pence, but I'm very happy to have at least one of these in my collection. It's possible that I may be taking a trip later this year over to the British Isles. We'll see. I don't know if that's going to happen right now, but if we do, I'm definitely going to be scouring the comic stores there for some pence variants. So hopefully we'll have some cool videos if that happens. After that issue, we get to Doctor Strange Annual #1. Now, a lot of these covers, we have Clea, who's fantastic. In most of this series, she's sort of the damsel in distress. She is Doctor Strange's lover and apprentice, which is sort of, it's, you wouldn't allow that on a school campus, but since even though she's the student and he's the master, they're having a relationship, and it's fine. They're consulting adults, whatever. Power imbalance, sure. The main problem is that like she's there to be the damsel in distress, and so even though I'm a big fan of Clea, like when she was first introduced by Ditko, she was sort of like, yeah, I mean the story was about Doctor Strange going to rescue her, but she had this sort of there was something about her where she seemed sort of feisty and independent and spirited, and I think that gets lost here a little bit, although later on in this run, not the part I'm showing today, but later, she really starts kicking butt, really for the first time. Here's a cover where Doctor Strange and Clea are fighting each other, 21. There's not a whole lot to say about a lot of these in this run in particular, in the 20s, because they're just not very memorable. 23, its name is Worm World, and no man can escape it alive. Except Doctor Strange. Yep, he survives. 24, I like this cover. It's a cool cover. 25, it's Doctor Strange fighting himself. The most deadly mystic combat of all. I love the semi-frame covers, so I do like that. 26, it says the return of the Ancient One. I can't remember if he actually returns in this issue. He did die at the beginning of Englehart's run back in Marvel Premiere number 9. And one of the big complaints that people have about this batch of comics here that I'm going through right now is that at the end of it, when Englehart left the book and Wolfman took over, Wolfman seemed to intentionally undo everything that Englehart had done. And in some cases, it seemed a little mean-spirited to just sort of dismantle everything about Englehart's legacy on the book and replace it with stuff that's not as good. So I know some people that are not fans of this particular era of Doctor Strange. Here's 27. 28 with the in-betweener. There are some efforts in this part right here to try and sort of get that sort of Ditko-esque sort of epic storyline going, and it doesn't really quite land, but I appreciate that, you know, there's some effort. Here's a Brunner cover, so that's cool. It features Nighthawk, which is a little odd. Here's issue 30. Tom Sutton does the art on this issue, which is a match of creator and character that makes way too much sense. So we don't get as much of him as maybe we should. 31. On first glance, it seems a little odd to have the Submariner in the Doctor Strange story, but then you're like, well, they are founding members of the Defenders together, so they work together all the time, so in that way it makes sense, but in another way it seems really out of place. 32. 33, we get a Frank Brunner cover. Some weird mirror images attacking them. I'd say that some of these later Brunner covers not as great as the earlier ones, but 34. For whatever reason, this cover feels very modern. Like the difference between this and this, like it just feels like this feels like Bronze Age, and this starts to feel like it's Copper Age. It's still 79. It's just something about the cleanness of the look of this that feels very 80s to me, actually. 35. 36. 37, nice cover from Steve Leialoha. This 37, right? Yeah, 36, 37. 38. So we have a storyline here. Chris Claremont comes in. We have some new writers coming in. First of all, I should mention in a couple of those previous ones, Roger Stern comes in and he's credited as basically as the plotter. But there's other like writers, and Ralph Macchio, maybe, I forget. But there's other people scripting and stuff, but he's contributing some of the story ideas. This is important because next video, when we get later in this run, Roger Stern takes over and becomes a regular writer, and Roger Stern's run is top notch. It's so much better than this stuff here. In the meantime, though, it's, I guess, a little too early for Stern to be taking over for whatever reason full-time, so instead Chris Claremont comes on board. So we get this storyline that's very sort of, the pacing is very strange. Like, I forget if it's this issue or the next one, but in one of these issues, it just ends. Doctor Strange's investigating his thing, and the guy's like, someone stole the book. It was Baron Mordo. And Doctor Strange's like, Baron Mordo? And then you turn the page and it's ended. There's nothing saying to be continued. And it's like they're right in the middle of a conversation. It just ends. I think that was supposed to be a cliffhanger, but they forgot to put all the stuff to indicate that it's the end of the story. So it feels like it just ends in the middle. And that happens a couple times here. It's really jarring. Also kind of jarring is this cover by Al Milgrom, because I'm not an Al Milgrom fan, but this is a really cool cover. When Al Milgrom has time, he actually did quite a few really cool covers in the late 70s and very early 80s, and then after that it felt like the shooter thought he was too valuable because he was so fast and like a workhorse, that they just sort of like took him off of doing cover work like this and had him start doing a bunch of monthly stuff, and it's just not nearly as good. But actually, he's got some cool covers, most notably, I guess, on Peter Parker Spectacular Spider-Man. But this is a really cool cover here on Doctor Strange number 39. Doctor Strange number 40, same storyline. So we got this multi-part storyline that involves Baron Mordo. Interior art in most of these is by still by Gene Colan, Chris Claremont on the scripts, and then at the end of this issue, you just get a blurb saying, "Hey, the storyline continues in Man-Thing." So I'm not a fan of Man-Thing, but Chris Claremont was writing Man-Thing at the same time, and so sure enough, for no apparent reason, other than I guess to try and boost sales on Man-Thing, which is odd because Doctor Strange wasn't selling very well. I don't know. Whatever reason, they decided to do this crossover. So in order to finish this storyline, you actually cross over from Doctor Strange 40 to Man-Thing number 4, and then back over to Doctor Strange 41, which does have a pretty cool cover with Man-Thing on it. You know how much I dislike my swamp monsters. These muck-encrusted mockery of men, they can all go jump in a lake as far as I'm concerned. They can go right back in the swamp. But anyway, here he is here. And that's where I'm going to stop the video. So as you can see, it's a little bit shorter than most of my complete run videos because I don't really have as much to say. A lot of these are just very sort of like interchangeable, not particularly great stories. There's some interesting behind the scenes stuff that I talked about, but the actual stories are kind of forgettable once Englehart leaves. It's really unfortunate that Brunner wasn't able to keep up the pace, and it's also unfortunate that we lost Englehart in the middle of that storyline. So there's a number of years here where Doctor Strange is sort of muddling along, and it's just sort of like mediocre. Next time around, we're going to get back to it, and we're going to have a little bit more of that, and then Roger Stern's going to take over. So next time around, we'll be showing Doctor Strange issues 42 to the end of the Roger Stern run, which I think is issue 75. So right before the series ends. So we'll be showing all that, and I have a lot more to say really about the Roger Stern run because I love that run. So that's next time, though. For now, let me know what you think of this down below, and I'll see you next time.